Hi, this is CPA Ted Lanzaro, and welcome to the Forensic Accounting and Investigative Services Divorce Podcast. Today's guest is Judy Heft. She's the founder and president of Judy Heft and Associates. They're celebrating their 23 years helping high net individuals and small businesses with bookkeeping and bill paying. Judy is the author, financial organizer, bookkeeper, and much more. In her role as a professional and personal financial organizer, Judy combines her talents and experience in organization and financial assistance. Recognizing the unique needs of each of her clients, Judy steps in with customized organization services, including bill paying, financial record keeping, tracking of expenses and contributions, and related correspondence with banks, vendors, insurance companies, and healthcare providers. Her book, How to Be a Smart, Successful, and Organized for a Better Today and Tomorrow, is available on Amazon. Hey, Judy, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great, Ted. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Believe me, I'm so excited about having you on. So why don't we start with a little bit of background? How did you get started in your business, and what did you do before you started it? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Ted. Well, I feel like I was born to be an entrepreneur. I grew up in the family retail business that my mother started on her own way back in the late 50s with no retail experience. And she had a partner for 3 months that she ended up buying out. And I grew up in that family business and just really learned a lot about being a businesswoman at a young age. And one of the things was, my parents gave me a lot of responsibility. When they'd go away for summer vacations, they would leave me in charge. When I was in college, of course, they'd leave me in charge. They took me to New York on buying trips. I learned how to do marketing, even displaying, everything, bookkeeping, the old-fashioned double entry ledger way. And that's really how I ended up starting this business. We closed the business. The retail economy was just changing. It wasn't really doing that well anymore. All the discounters were opening up, and it was just really, it was an expensive proposition to be your own, to have your own retail store. The rents were just so outrageously high all of a sudden, and just couldn't make it work. The marriage was falling apart, and I was in the process of a divorce and just really needed to do something else to make some real money.
Well, there you go, right? That sounds good. It sounds like a good bounce back story, right?
Exactly.
So then, as a result as part of that, you wrote your book there, How to Be Smart, Successful, and Organized with Your Money. How did that come about? Why did you write that?
So, Ted, I wasn't always financially organized. A lot of people think I'm just like so together with my money, and I wasn't for many years. I kept my head in the sand. I let my my ex-husband handle all the finances. I just really didn't want to know anything about it. Even though I was the breadwinner and I was the one who was handling it, I let him pay the bills and do everything. And so I started this business. I've been blogging for about 6 years because I like to empower other women, especially younger women, so they don't make the same mistakes I made when I was starting out, when I was first married. And so I've been blogging for about, I think, 6 years, and I decided to make a compilation of my blogs and write a book so I could help other people get organized and figure out how they can have a better financial future.
Well, that's great. And I think one of the things that that you mentioned that's really important is how in a lot of cases people often rely on maybe their partner or their spouse to handle a lot of the financial stuff. And then what ends up happening, and this show is obviously about divorce, so what ends up happening is with divorces, sometimes now after the divorce, these folks are left with, the responsibility of taking care of their own finances, but really maybe lacking the knowledge to really do so. So let's talk about some of the things from the book that may be helpful to say somebody just getting divorced who hasn't really had to take care of their finances before.
So yeah, there's a lot of good information here. It's really an easy read. It's only about 125 pages. And I think, you can skip around the different chapters, but there's a lot of information in here. I think one of the important ones, especially for women with getting recently divorced, is creating a new will. You need to figure out who's going to be the executor. Who are you going to have as the guardians of your children? Do you have a healthcare proxy, and any advance directives? And that's outlined in here too. And I think, picking an executor and picking the guardians of your children is a difficult one when you're getting divorced because you really don't know who to turn to. Maybe your parents are elderly, or they're just not even elderly, but they're a little older, and you don't feel that they want to do that. Maybe you don't have a great relationship with your siblings, and it's a big responsibility to ask a friend. So, that's one of the things that I think is really important. And we touch on that a little bit too. Another thing is creating a spending plan. I like to call budget spending plan. It just sounds better to me. It's not as strict, we can have a plan and we can still be spending. So taking a look at that. And, one of the things that we notice is there's so many leaks in our credit card expenses. I mean, really looking at our credit card expenses with a fine-tooth comb. People are, you go up and you get coerced into joining the gym and then you never go there, but it's, continually coming out of your credit card every month. Or maybe your kids have your credit card and they're playing all these games and they don't even realize that every time they click on something that you're getting charged for that. So, I mean, a lot of people I know don't pay attention to a lot of their bills. And that's one of the things that we really like to help our clients with and empower them to know what you're spending, know where every penny is going. It's really important. It's so easy just to swipe a credit card.
So you actually look at all the different charges on the credit card, and then you'll talk with the client and say, hey, what's this, what's that? Are you using your, gym membership, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, we look at that very carefully, especially in the beginning when we're first getting started with them. But then also as it goes along, because we're looking at our clients' credit card bills every week, and we're just making sure, because there's fraud too. There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on out there, and you can't be too careful. Really have to keep an eye on everything, and checking accounts too. And also banks do make mistakes. I mean, don't think that they don't. We've caught mistakes.
That's true. Absolutely. And there's a chapter in the book where you talk about record keeping before and after divorce. I think that would be really helpful for people. So tell me, what do you recommend as far as what kind of record keeping to be doing?
So I think, well, that's a really good thing, because I don't think anybody gets married thinking that maybe they're going to get divorced someday. But you really have to be proactive about your finance, and not only in case there's a divorce or you lose a spouse, but you really need to know where your money is going. So, using software like Quicken or Mint is a good user-friendly one that a lot of individuals are using. You don't really need QuickBooks, but Quicken Home and Business is a good one. That's what we use for our clients, and we track every single expense. We're not just saying credit card payment in there. We're tracking everything, and especially if you have teenagers and or even young adult children that are using your credit cards, or you have multiple properties. We like to keep an eye on everything and see exactly where every penny is going, because what, the wealthier the client is, the more they're paying attention to their finances, which is interesting, because that's why they're wealthy, because they pay attention.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's good to know, like, if you're an individual and you really haven't dealt a lot with your finances, you may not really know exactly what your kids are spending, for example, on your credit card. So that, I think that really becomes important, because you don't, you've got to keep an eye on that if you have, because and a lot of people are sticking to some sort of budget or whatever, or spending plan, right? What else? What kind of information would you say if somebody was planning on perhaps getting a divorce? What would you advise them, make sure they have, as far as documents and such?
Well, they need to have all their statements. They should really, I think a lot of women, I don't want to say just women, but I think mostly women don't always know everything that's going on in their financial lives. Maybe they don't even go to the meetings with their financial advisors, or maybe they do and the advisor is only talking to the man in that meeting. So I think it's really important to know what the user IDs and passwords are, just to know exactly, so you have access to all of those accounts in case anything's going to be going wrong. And then, if your spouse isn't going to give that to you, and it can go both ways, male or female, then maybe that's a red flag. That could be a red flag. Maybe there's something going on there that you should really know about and pay attention to. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I would definitely. We have actually, as a fraud examiner and somebody who
Right.
deals with divorce fraud all the time, we have a checklist of red flags. That's definitely pretty high on the list. Won't give you the passwords. So yeah, that's a good point. Making sure that you have the passwords. So let's talk about a little bit about getting organized, because in a lot of cases, one of the first steps people have to do in order to wrap their hands around their finances is to get organized, right? How do you typically help somebody get organized?
Well, I think one of the first things you need to do, and if you're not, maybe you're not computer, you're not using one of those tracking softwares like Quicken, for instance, I think one good thing to do is just to set up a paper filing system. That's a really good way to get your feet wet and get started. And maybe you do an Excel spreadsheet and categorize everything, figure out what your expenses are. And don't forget things like that latte that you're getting at Starbucks. Some of those things you're paying cash for, and you might not be paying attention to them. So those are things that you just really need to be paying attention to, where every penny is going. So that's really the best way to get organized, and have those files. And when the statements come in, look at them. I mean, I know a lot of people that we've met, that we've been working with, and they don't even open their statements. They're just piles and piles of statements and envelopes. They don't think they need to open them, but you have to. That's an important way to get financially organized, is know what everything is. I think that's the most important thing, to be empowered and have a good understanding.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about you. You're doing some coaching, some money coaching also, and a lot of that is about that empowerment mindset. So tell us how you typically might start with somebody doing that, and what are the things that you most often see that people have bad mindset about?
So that's an interesting topic to me. When I first got involved in it a couple of years ago, I thought I could really help a lot of people. So I became certified as a money coach. And one of the things that we do to get started is we take a look at the chronological life of, your financial life, and go way back as far as you can. Who was holding money over your head? Who was giving your money? Whether you come from a wealthy family or a moderate or poor family, everybody has different money habits and different money mindset that they come to the table with. And so looking back and see what your money habits were. How was it held over you? Was your mother or father a martyr with you every time you asked for something? Did they hold it over your head? Do you act like the victim? Are you foolish? Are you gambling your money away? Or you're not paying attention? It doesn't have to be gambling at the casino. It can be any kind of throwing your money away, just not paying attention to it. So that's one of the things we do. We look at all of that and figure out what the different archetype you are and how we can help you look at it, where your money habits came from, and how can we help you change your habits and create new healthy habits around money.
Great. Are there certain, what are the certain categories of different kinds of people, different kinds of money habits? Like what would...
So there's about 8 different ones. So one of them is the victim. That person is just really, they play that victim role. They can't do this because, it's someone else's fault. They're blaming other people. There's the innocent. That's the person that doesn't want to look at their money. They don't want to know anything about it. They're perfectly capable, but they're not interested in knowing anything. Like I said before, there's the fool. The fool is the gambler, throws money away. It's oftentimes is generous to a fault. They just people please. They want to give a lot of money away. There's the creative type. The creative type is the artist, and they're just very altruistic, and they don't really think that money is important. They just want to create. Let's see, there's the magician. Magician is the best one to be. If you can be, we all have a little bit of all of these in us too. And if you can be the magician, you can really make money magically work for you and figure out how to do it by thinking. It's not magic, of course, but that's, one of the types that there is. I mentioned the martyr before. The martyr holds it over your head. If you grew up with a martyr parent that just always was holding everything over your head for you, that's frustrating. And then you bring those, as adults, if we have children, we bring those habits to our family, to our children, and also into our relationships with our spouse. And that can cause problem, if one person is the fool and one person is the innocent, there can be conflicts, financial conflicts there.
That sounds like a bad one.
One thing I remember when I first got married, my sister said to me, who's a little older and was already married, said to me, the only thing you and your husband are going to fight over are money and children. I said, oh, not us. We're never going to fight over that. Well, what do we fight over? Money, how to raise the children.
Yeah.
But money is a big one.
I think that's pretty typical, of that sort of situation. So what happens in a situation where somebody is getting divorced and maybe, it's their spouse has always had the advisors, right? And now they have a lawyer, an accountant, a financial advisor who's really not on their team, right? So how would you help them work around that, or would you help them, find new advisors, or, how do you go about doing that?
Absolutely. So we have a group of advisors that we work with that we can refer. We'll refer, 2 or 3 people out to someone, and there's a lot of it's personalities too. And then they can feel more empowered to be picking their own advisor, their own accountant, their own attorney, their own, if they need a forensic accountant, whatever they need. Even we can also recommend a divorce attorney or family attorney if they're just still thinking about it, and talk with them about whether they want to do collaborative, mediator, or litigator, or what really is going to work best for them with their personality and with their spouse's personality, so they can help them. But yeah, we have a lot of people that we're happy to recommend. We work closely with them too. But we can work closely with the family lawyer and help them with their either financial affidavit or statement of net worth, as it's called in New York, Connecticut.
Great. So you can help somebody put together their financial affidavit or net worth.
Absolutely. We do that frequently. If someone comes to us, an attorney might recommend them, and they don't know what they're spending their money on. They really have no idea. And usually when they're guessing, it's either way low or way high because they're not paying attention to their finances. So we can help them with that.
Yeah, and I know how important it is for those things to be accurate because I'm actively examining them as part of a divorce decree, and if they're too high or too low, it creates a problem, a credibility problem for you in court. So that can really be really not be the greatest thing. So let's talk a little bit more about what are some other tips for being smart with your money? What are some other things just in general, but not divorce, like just being smart with it, more organized?
Well, I think the most important thing to do is to really be empowered. Be empowered with your money. Talk to your advisors. Ask questions. If you don't feel like you're getting the right answers, or they're not respecting you and not giving you answers that you feel like you deserve, then I think that hire somebody else. Go out there, look for somebody else. Get the right people that you feel really comfortable with that are supporting you. That's a really important way to stay organized. Whether you're getting divorced or not, you want to pick an advisor that you feel has your best interest at heart. And then just pay attention. So use tracking software, or if you don't want to use the tracking software, hire someone to do it for you, but always really pay attention to what you're spending. You know what I find? A lot of clients will look at their checking account and think they have, X amount of dollars, but they're forgetting that there's checks outstanding. So they're really not paying attention. They really don't know how much money they have in their account. So I think that's one thing you really have to do is really track it. You can't go by what it says on the bank account because you'll forget sometimes that our checks are outstanding.
Yeah. How important do you we both know that communication between advisor and client is important. And I also know that there's a lot of advisors who sometimes, especially with people who aren't as financially sophisticated as say you or I, a lot of times they'll talk over a client, like the client doesn't really, the client will listen politely, but they really don't understand what they're saying. Would you go with a client to sort of meet with the advisor and help them understand what the advisor is telling them if that was the case?
No, absolutely. I've been in lots of client advisor meetings and helped communicate, because sometimes the client might not know how to communicate with their advisor. Sometimes they don't know the right questions to ask. So that's a really important thing too. Yeah, especially I've done that, lots of meetings.
Are you helping clients look at their returns on their investments and stuff? Will you look at their portfolios and tell them, they may ask you, well, how do I know if I have a good advisor? He seems like a nice man or woman, but am I really making money?
So with that, I would go to the meeting with them, with their advisor. I say, let's set up a meeting. We'll figure it out and have them explain it all to us and see what the returns are. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't make those kind of decisions. I'm not an accountant, not an attorney, but I'm always there to help.
Great. So tell us a little bit about what other services does your company offer people, and not necessarily just divorced people. Let's talk about some of the other categories and who else you're working with.
So one of the things that we do is we've been working with some trust and estate attorneys who have been, so for instance, in one particular client, 2 sisters that live out of town were named executors of this aunt's estate, but they didn't have any financial acumen, didn't know where to begin. And we worked with this attorney before, so he recommended us to them, and we helped them with all the bill paying, with all We change some addresses for them. We help them, and we even return a cable box for them if they're out of town. So we'll help them with all kinds of anything that they have to do there. That's one of the things that we do. I'd say about 25% of our clients are between 80 and 100 years old, and they don't have any children living nearby. They're overwhelmed and they need help. You know, oftentimes the caregiver is the only person that's spending time with these people, and they really should not be touching mail. They should not be looking at bank statements because, I mean, there's a lot of great caregivers out there, don't get me wrong, but sometimes some of them might have a sense of entitlement when they see how much money is in these accounts, and you know, they're coercing the elderly client or the elderly person to either, I've seen where they've been named in their wills or written large gifts. One client bought a car for a caregiver. You know, they just, because with the elderly, sometimes they're just lonely and they're happy to have someone that's paying attention to them. So that's one of the things that we do. We keep a really close eye on the finances, the daily money management of our elderly clients.
Yeah, that's so important with the amount of elder care fraud there is out there. That's amazing what you're doing. So we'll wrap it up. But if you had any last minute advice for women getting divorced and as it relates to their money, what would that last piece of advice be?
I think really, you know, something I wish I had known was pay attention. You know, just ask a lot of questions, find out what's going on, and know what you're spending your money on, and know what those financial statements are like. You know, the advisor statements from your investments, and understand them. And if you don't understand them, ask lots of questions, try to find out. And, you know, just pay attention is the main thing. To be empowered, you have to pay attention. And you have to know what's going on. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would give. Be aware.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think we gave out a lot of information. I wanted to thank you so much for the amount of great information that you gave out today for our listeners. Why don't you tell them how they can get in touch with you if they need your services, Judy?
Sure. Well, my website is judithheft.com, and they can always email us at info@judithheft.com. Or they can call the office at 203-978-1858, and we're always here to answer any questions, guide you in the right direction. If it's not the right client for us, we will definitely recommend somebody that can help you. If you have anything going on in your life that's major, you know, don't wait for a crisis. That's the thing. You know, don't wait for a crisis. Take, you know, affirmative action, I guess would be the way to say it.
That's awesome. Yeah, you know what? That's really a good point, is don't wait for an emergency, because that's where you really get hurt, you know. So, hey, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it. Great information. And again, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ted. It was great. I appreciate it too.